Okay, good evening. I am Margot Rieg. I am the acting president of the Whittier League of Women Voters and the president of the LA County League of Women Voters. We are here this evening in our voter service capacity to offer you as voters the opportunity to hear from two candidates for Rio Hondo College Area 5. The Area 5 for Rio Hondo College is primarily East Whittier and La Habra Heights. It is the other seat that is in Whittier is Area 3, and that board member who was elected in 2018 was not challenged in this election. So Area 3 will be held by Ms. Lamelli for another 4 years. Area 1 is also on the ballot, but it really doesn't deal with Whittier at all. Area 1 is mainly South Whittier, or South El Monte and El Monte, and the very north edge of Whittier. Areas 2 and 4 had their elections 2 years ago, and so those two candidates, those two offices will not be back on the ballot for 2 more years. So this is the one Rio Hondo College seat that is being contested within the city of Whittier, and therefore we can be here in Whittier Council Chambers, which we appreciate very, very much. And we thank the city of Whittier for allowing us to be here and to televise this event and to put it on YouTube. We have two candidates this evening. There are many things that are going on at Rio Hondo College that are of importance and that the Board of Trustees needs to oversee and make decisions upon. We will start by opening with the candidates giving a 2-minute opening statement. They were asked, why are you running? And what are the issues that you think are the most pressing at Rio Hondo College? And we will begin this evening with Dr. Vanessa Tyson.
Good evening.
Oh, you need to push the red button. There.
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Tyson. I was born here in Whittier, California. I actually grew up in Area 5, where I attended Murphy Ranch Elementary School, Granada Middle School, and then later Lucerna High School. I was raised by a single mom, and I'm a first-generation college graduate. I graduated from Princeton University in 1998. I was a good nerd. Then I'm still a pretty good nerd. Now I'm a professor. So when Margot Rieg refers to me as Dr. Vanessa, she has also known me since I was a very little child, and she was my Girl Scout troop leader. And I was, well, she knew me since then. All right. So, let's see here. These days, I'm now a tenured professor. I teach Intro to Public Policy. I teach Women in Public Policy. I teach Environmental Policy, but I also teach Marginalized Communities. And that's probably my favorite course because it deals with the marginalization of certain groups, certain social groups, and what that means for U.S. society as a whole. I'm running for Rio Hondo precisely because I believe that I can be a better advocate for students who have come from marginalized backgrounds, but also that I can be a better steward using my public policy knowledge to better lead Rio Hondo in the direction that it needs to go with the current challenges that it faces. It has faced a number of scandals. It has faced a number of financial hurdles, and there's more to come. And I think that as a person who has both policy knowledge as well as experience being a first-generation college graduate, as well as being a woman of color, as well as being a longtime community member who is dedicated to Whittier and the beautiful people here, I want to be on the board of Rio Hondo. Thank you.
Next we will hear from Oscar Vayadares.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for your efforts tonight to host this candidate forum. I value and respect your work. As a former undocumented student and a champion of student success, after being elected in 2018, I was very intentional about what I promised the voters. As a champion of student success, I've been working very hard to close the achievement gap, bring additional resources, while maintaining fiscal prudence, and also making sure that we are developing a regional approach to developing a culture of career-ready education. Among the many efforts and policy that I've led include securing $1.5 million in scholarship for our students. We're going to be dispersing $500,000 each year. We had our first one last Friday, and subsequently, for another additional 2 years, the rest of the $1 million. In addition, while I was board president for a year and a half, I led the efforts to increase our reserves from 7 to 27, which is unprecedented at Rio Hondo College. I led the efforts to refinance the remaining portion of our bond that we couldn't access in 2018, and that resulted in almost $14 million in taxpayer savings. I also led an effort with my colleague Rosael Balomeli and was part of the Aspen Institute Fellowship that secures over $65,000 to directly tackle math inequities that we have and close the achievement gap. As a former undocumented student and living the American dream, I am proud to be serving my community as Rio Hondo College Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question, we will be alternating back and forth between the two candidates, so they will end up having to answer two questions in a row all the time. For this first question, we will begin with Mr. Vayadares. Rio Hondo College is one of the few community colleges in the state to have a 4-year program to award degrees in technical areas. Should Rio Hondo establish any additional programs, and if so, in what disciplines?
I start off. Thank you.
And we have 1 minute for answers now.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, we are in the process of it. In particular, as a public conservator for the Department of Mental Health, an employee of County of Los Angeles, and we know with the demographics, it's a changing, aging demographics. I will be pushing and advocating to make sure that we have some type of health science bachelor's degree. The state already gave us the authorization to move forward. It is just up to us on what type of bachelor's degree we're going to be pursuing, and we're going to look at the data and see what some of the population demographics, employment, et cetera, is what we're going to move forward. As you know, the state only allows a very narrow opportunity for our nursing students. There's only cohorts. There's only 2, And as you all know, 60 spots, and there's over 800 applications. And that's where I've been working in terms of making sure that we can expand that by making sure that we have a bachelor's degree in health science. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Tyson.
In theory, I would certainly support an extension of a bachelor degree program in the health sciences. In practice, it would depend. The devil's in the details, and this is the story of most all public policy. When you're thinking about bachelor degree programs, 4-year programs, et cetera, one thing that you have to consider is kind of how accreditation works in terms of the recognition of these programs, not only within the state of California, but outside of the state of California. And so speaking as a professor and someone who has had to go through any number of institutional reviews, et cetera, that goes on with higher education in general, both on both sides of the review process. What I can say is that we would have to, make sure that the curricula was rigorous, that the, programming met all the standards, and then we would probably have to also rely on external reviewers to offer input into any new programs.
Okay, thank you. What ethical standards should elected officials and candidates for office abide by? Should office holders be held to account if they are found to be violating ethical standards? And we will begin with Ms. Tyson.
Yes, always. We've been watching the scandal in Los Angeles City. And I don't know about any of you, but I personally, as a Black woman, was horrified by the comments made by some of the LA City Council members, along with the now resigned labor leader of the LA Fed. What I would say is this: elected officials are actors in the public good, right? We are supposed to be good faith actors. And when we abuse our power, if we abuse our power, we should be checked at every turn. I am someone who has stood up and come forward when with regards to issues, particularly with regards to sexual harassment and sexual assault. These aren't just issues that I teach on. These are also issues where I've had to walk the walk. Yes, elected officials should be held to ethical standards, and they should be disqualified if they violate those standards.
Thank you. Mr. Vayadares.
Absolutely. I think as an elected official, in particular at Hondo College, we have a legal, fiduciary, and ethical responsibility that we take an oath for. And absolutely, as a matter of fact, a few years ago, actually in 2020, we have an incident with one of the administrators that we had to rectify a $20 million clerical error. I'm proud to say that we rectified that. We brought back our former superintendent president, Teresa Dreyfus, to be able to rectify that and make sure that we always have a fiduciary responsibility to our voters in addition to all ethical standards. It is important. Yes, we do take an oath for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this question says, what services should Rio Hondo provide to students who are experiencing housing and food crises? And we'll begin with Mr. Vayadares.
Thank you. Actually, I'm proud to say that I've led the efforts on basic needs, and not only as basic needs, what is defined across our country as both housing and food. At Rio Hondo College, since I was elected, we added 3 very important additional basic needs, which are technology, access to computers, access to Wi-Fi. We also, being a mental health professional, we at Rio Hondo College made access to mental health a basic need in addition to childcare. In 2020, during the pandemic, I led the efforts as board president to make sure we allocated over $500,000 to keep the child care center open during the pandemic. And that is an important recognition. And this is why Rio Hondo College, just this year, was recognized as 1 out of 6 community colleges in the country and received an additional $1 million from the Department of Education for this particular efforts that we've been working on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Tyson.
Okay, so here's the deal. When it comes to the Office of Basic Needs, right, this was created by an entire board of trustees. This is a team effort. This isn't just one person who leads the charge or this or that. This is about how we work together, how we collaborate to make things happen. And I was a team player. I played soccer. I was a captain of the track team. I believed in teamwork and you don't take credit, you get it done. When it comes to basic needs, here's the thing. There are all sorts of programs around the world that deal with basic needs far better than we do here in the United States. So for instance, one of my good friends was at a university in Turkey the other day, right? We're all professor nerds, whatever. But she's at the university in Turkey and she goes to get lunch in the cafeteria and it costs her €2, right? €2, whatever. Yeah. So the bottom line is that on campus, meals should be affordable for all community members, right? We have Rio Hondo has roughly half of the student body that has, experienced food insecurity in the last, year and a half, right? Based upon, a student survey. And if you have that, how well are you going to get your work done? How able are you to focus on your studies and your career if you don't know where your next meal is coming from? So Office of Basic Needs is absolutely wonderful. I completely support it, and I want subsidized food for the Rio Hondo community.
Thank you. What supportive services can Rio Hondo provide its students to address emotional, mental health, and career guidance? And we'll begin with Dr. Tyson.
All right. Again, so this goes into mental health resources, which I think need to be grossly expanded, but I think it needs to be grossly expanded across the country. I know that what I've seen in the classroom with the kind of toll that my students have experienced, both post-pandemic, but we're not really post-pandemic, we're still in it. You're dealing with comorbid issues, right? Because you're not only dealing with pandemic and kind of a collective depression, but you're also dealing with a marginalized student body that disproportionately has dealt with food insecurity, housing insecurity, what have you. They're also dealing with, violence in the home. You're dealing with a plethora of issues that can, steer you off course. If you want student success, then you have to back it up with actual programs that work, and you have to meet students where they're at, right? Instead of expecting them to conform to whatever, given guidelines that the state is putting in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vayadares.
Thank you. As mentioned earlier, as a mental health professional for the Department of Mental Health for the County of Los Angeles, during the last 4 years, we at Rio Hondo College, we doubled our staff. During the pandemic, we made all distance education available in addition to very important psychological services for our students. As a matter of fact, our former trustee at that time, or student trustee at that time, when I asked him what else we can do in terms of mental health services, he asked if we can provide any support groups for anyone grieving for loss of anyone during the pandemic. Of course, I took him up on the offer, and as some of you may be aware, I lost my mother to the pandemic. He lost his father to the pandemic. We started a support group to be able to support our students, to make sure that they feel welcome, to feel that they, especially in addition to the mental health services, but several levels of anxiety, uncertainty during the pandemic. So it's very important, and I've led the way in terms of this. This is why thank you.
You can finish your sentence.
This is why I work closely with Congresswoman Grace Napolitano, who many of you know has been a champion of mental health for 30 years. I mean, way before it was a priority for many policymakers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have pretty much gone through the questions that we have. If anyone else has questions about policies, about academics, about curriculum, about services, about sports for that matter,
Dodgers.
then we would definitely entertain those questions. Was that Irene? Mm-hmm. Wish I knew more. Okay. I will ask this question. What programs at Rio Hondo do you think are outstanding and innovative that you like to brag about when you're out in the community? And we'll begin with Mr. Vayadares.
Thank you. As many of you know, I hope you are, that a lot of things are happening at Rio Hondo College that are extraordinary. For example, in 2020, or right before the pandemic, our speech and debate team were national champions. This reflects the great investment that we do, both working collaboratively with our faculty, support staff, to be able to prepare, not just in this particular field of speech and debate, but obviously mold future leaders. I am very proud of that particular program. I brought 2 members of Congress and 2 members of California legislature to be able to dialogue and to speak to them, to share their thoughts, to share their process of speech and debate, gathering facts and making rationally logical arguments. In addition, as all we know, I hope you know again, that our CTE program is recognized not just across the state, but across the country. Our professor, John Fralla, is a leader when it comes to alternative fuel and any state policy on automotive technology.
Thank you very much. Dr. Tyson.
Okay, so I really like the nursing programs that are available at Rio Hondo. It's something that I've been following, and I've become more interested in health sciences in general since my mother has fallen ill. So I actually have been looking into the potential of taking nursing classes at Rio Hondo because I'm a lifelong learner. There's always things that you can learn to help other people. I like the CTE programs, especially the auto mechanical programs, what have you. They have a special program for, with Honda and Acura, for instance. So you actually have very real hands-on mechanical experience for technical knowledge that I think is phenomenal. There's a variety of certifications that you can get, but the programs that I really like, and I teach environmental policy, so I teach on the mega fires, I teach on the drought, but looking at fires in California, Rio Hondo actually has a fire tech program that I think is phenomenal, as well as training firefighters, and yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
We need them in a real way.
Thank you. Okay. How would you handle harassment of any kind in the school environment at Rio Hondo? And we'll begin with Ms. Tyson.
Let's be honest. I basically have a zero tolerance policy, and I tend to call people out when it comes to harassment, because that's not the way that we need to be operating any institution. Speaking as someone who has been an educator, I've been a professor now for roughly 15 years. It is something that you have to be very conscious of in the classroom. It is something that you have to be very conscious of on your campus. And it's something that you have to be proactive about, right? You can't let these things fall through the cracks. You can't let these incidents, you can't turn your cheek on these. You have to actually address them. I know right now, at least, there $55,000 report was commissioned, investigation into Mr. Vayadares' behavior towards a community member of ours, and yet we never saw the results of said report. So this is public money that was used, but we have no idea where it went or what it concluded.
Thank you. Mr. Vayadares.
Thank you. It's unfortunate that my opponent, a well-educated individual, has to resort to political slander and not stand on her own merit as a viable candidate. But we know that as a institution of higher learning, we receive federal funds, which forces us to have very strict guidelines, rules, through Title IX funding. It is important to also recognize that we go through regular trainings And there is an entire process for any student and or staff to be able to report and go through the process that is beyond the Board of Trustees. It is a process that is established and governed and reviewed by the federal government based on the federal funds that we receive. Thank you.
Thank you. I think at this point that we will move to closing statements. And for closing statements, we will begin with Mr. Vayadares and we will end with Dr. Tyson. You have 1 minute for a closing statement.
Well, once again, thank you for the opportunity to have this forum. As a former undocumented student, I am proud and privileged to serve my community and be a champion as student success, tackling the achievement gap, securing additional funds, making sure that we have fiduciary responsibility. We know we have, as of today, we have a 24% surplus. The state only mandates a minimum of 7. I think it's should be recognized that for the past 4 years, we've been very diligent about our finances. The fact that we are going to, and we need to do more about our men of color. We need to invest because in the next 5 years, less than 30% of our graduating students from college are going to be men. This is something that needs to be tackled right away, and this is something that I'm already working on. Again, thank you for the opportunity to serve my community, and I look forward to earning your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we will hear from Dr. Vanessa Tyson.
I wasn't initially planning on running for this office because I've been taking care of my mom, and she's ailing, and she's my best friend. She raised me to be a good person, and I try to be. And part of being my mother's daughter is doing what's right. She instilled values in me and ethics in me that I can't shake even if I wanted to. And one of those values is that when you have a decision to make, you have to ask yourself what is the right thing to do. And in this case, I believe the right thing was to run for Rio Hondo Community College Board, Area 5, and to challenge Oscar Vayadares for the seat.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that I can be a better steward, that I can be a better leader than Mr. Vayadares, and I honestly believe that it is the right thing to do to challenge him on these issues, to challenge his record, and to correct him when he makes statements that are completely false. So please vote for me. Thank you. And go Dodgers.
I'd like to thank both candidates for being here this evening and for facing this audience and some difficult questions. And I would like to thank the members of the league who have been here to sort the questions, collect the questions, time our event, and give me some needed support. Most of you have received your vote-by-mail ballot. They vowed that I think there's actually a state law that says the ballots have to be out by 1 month before the election. So my ballot came Saturday, I think, and the sample ballot came after, which is kind of a bizarre situation. Yes. But your ballot is here. Rio Hondo is on the ballot for people who live in Area 5. Whittier Union High School District is on the ballot for most people who live in this same area. You will have instructions. There are Dropbox locations mentioned in the cover of your ballot. There are instructions for how to find polling places by going to lavote.gov. That is their new website. They changed net to gov, and it's something I have to keep thinking about. lavote.gov, click on elections, and there is a wealth of information there to help you learn how to deal with turning in a ballot, finding a drop box, finding a vote center, deadlines very specifically outlined. You can, for people who are disabled, there is actually something called a remote accessible vote by mail ballot, so that it can be marked on the person's computer using the computer technology that they are able to access, and that it can be printed out and mailed or taken to a drop box by someone that they authorize, so that their ballot is official. And you do not have to be disabled to do this. You can go get your remote accessible vote by mail ballot and print it out and turn it in. Some of the cool things that have passed as state law in the state of California are that if you forget that important little detail of signing the back of your envelope, you are now sent a notice from the registrar's office saying, you did not sign your ballot envelope, and you may either come in or you may sign a document that and return it, and then they will put it with your ballot all before this seal ever gets opened, and you actually have several days after the election in order to do that. So we are trying to make it as accessible and doable as possible to cast a ballot. If you cannot make it to a polling place between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. on Election Day, you mail in or take to a drop box your vote by mail ballot. The vote centers will be open the weekend beginning the 29th of October for 3 or 4 days. Then there will be very few vote centers open, and then the vote centers will open again Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever it is, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, to be open from, I think, most days they're open from 10 to 7, but on Election Day itself, the 8th, they will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. There will be mobile vote centers going to different parts of the county to try to capture people who have difficulty getting to a vote center. So the message here is study, go to votersedge.org, read about the candidates, read about the ballot measures, use your sample ballot, which has a lot of good information about the 2 county measures in it. And after you feel like you have familiarized yourself with the things that are on the ballot, vote for the things that you are confident of and that you are concerned about. And one thing I have to tell high school kids is this is not a test. You don't have to fill in every blank. If there's something you don't know or don't understand or don't want to vote on, you don't have to. So we are now in the voting month, and we're encouraging everyone to make the opportunity to become better informed and then to cast a ballot. So thank you very much this evening.